Okay, so a lot of people ask, how does one find their patron, god or goddess? Because there's a lot of various pagans or wannabe pagans that are going on a magical path. Often they notice that a lot of people have patron gods or goddesses. So how does one go about finding that patron?
Well, I think we've pointed out a few times on the podcast, etc., that it's not, a pick a mix deal where we can just kind of bibliomancy our way through and kind of just keep flicking through the book of mythologies until you find a goddess that goes, "Oh, hello, I like you." It's not Tinder after all. Um, so what we would normally say is that you would kind of expect to have some kind of sign. So, you'd want to kind of explore the possibilities. So maybe do it through, psychic reading, drawing, to kind of see what's coming in your direction. I know we had a Patron recently who did some kind of automatic painting in a way to kind of figure out who was trying to contact her.
But we've also had people that say, I really kind of like the Virgin Mary, and whenever I go into a church, I always see a statue of her there. Is that a sign?
Well, it depends. Do you live in a Catholic area where you constantly see the Virgin Mary?
Well, she lives in
Um,
Rome.
does she? I thought she was an African princess. Anyway, we digress. The whole point of this was we keep to the point, Liam.
I think the point is you don't find them, they find you. Because you mentioned Tinder. Tinder is a dating app where you swipe, swipe, swipe until you like the look of something. And a lot of people I see in paganism don't use an app to find a goddess, they use a book of mythology, or even worse, a witchcraft book. And they think, I quite like the idea of Bridget. And she must be really, really nice and a lovely goddess to work with. I feel so drawn to her. And they feel like Bridget is reaching out to them just because they look upon a goddess that's apparently called Bridget and they feel somehow attached. And for me, I find that a little bit stalkery. I find that a little bit like you see that person that rides the bus with you on the way to work every morning, and they are, you look at them, you're supposed to introduce yourself, aren't you, Chris? You're not supposed to follow them home. You're not supposed to make a little shrine in your cupboard with images of them because this paganism thing is looking very stalkerish. All of a sudden, they have these little altars set up. And if that was a person that they'd be considering trying to go out on a date with, that would be all of a sudden creepy. But because if it's a spirit of some description, that's considered not to be creepy. Now, I'm not saying you can't have altars and that, but what I'm saying is you are attaching to that spirit before ever having got to know it. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. Like I said, if we to stick with the Tinder analogy, they've got to swipe right too. Otherwise, you can't talk to them. So I don't see why they think it any different when they're speaking to a deity, that they can just create a space and then assume that they're going to magically just pop up and love it. Okay then. So I suppose we should move on to the next bit, which is kind of how do you let them in? Kind of how do you allow them to have that space? Now that
Well,
we would normally say is the invocation-y part, but go on. What
for me,
evocation?
that is all about the connection, trying to make a connection, isn't it? So for me, you've got to really look at what your ability is to contact that spirit. Now, you've spoken about omens and things like that, and that's generally what I see the next level of person doing is they go and look up in a book. Normally it's a mythology book or a witchcraft blog post or something, and they say, Akate, black dogs,
Yeah.
Oh, I once saw a black dog in a park, and it chased me across the park. I just know it's a carte, and I am a little bit iffy about this situation because you're basing everything on probably one or two signs. Now, he reminds me a lot of the people that go on and on about that whole 11:11. I see 11 minutes past 11
Yeah.
everywhere. And, I think, this is often considered an omen, but this is not proper communication. What you need to do for a patron spirit, that is something that you are dedicating yourself to the teachings and fostering a relationship with that spirit. You need more than just a set of omens. A set of omens is literally the equivalent of the city of Bath. That way, you follow them like you follow the sign. You don't go to a road and then see the city of Bath pointing that way and think, oh, look, I'm in Bath. Oh, look, it's like I've always lived there. I am now officially a citizen of Bath. No, what you do is you follow the signposts, and a lot of the stuff that I see people thinking of a sign of as actually working with a spirit, such as seeing omens and signs and stuff, are really just the signposts towards you being pointing towards the direction of the spirit. And not all spirits that put out signposts are putting out signposts for you. So you can misconstrue a spirit wanting to work with you or just being in the vicinity of you with something that's reaching out to be some kind of guide or patron spirit. And that is a big problem if you pick the wrong spirit, which brings me on to, is this dangerous? Because some people are too scared to go to the next step because they feel it's dangerous. And there are some dangers in it, but this is, again, much like dating. With a dating and online dating, you think about, well, I choose a public space, I ask other people, I see if anyone else knows this person. At the end of the day, a lot of magic is logical, and the approach you take to magic is logical. What are your thoughts on the dangers and the getting to know of a spirit before you decide and they decide whether you're both going to work with each other?
Well, at the end of the day, it's a magical process. So having a language that you're going to use to actually speak to and communicate with is important. Because if you're just continuing to work with this entity with the hope that omens are going to be your only way of communicating, then obviously you're going to misread things. You're going to upset somebody, and then you're going to kind of, reap the rewards, so to speak, of having that kind of wishy-washy arrangement. So, at the end of the day, we call it a patron god or goddess for a reason. They're supposed to be invested in your pathway. It's a patron, someone who's actually invested in your achievements. That's only going to happen if you've got some kind of communication with them. So, it's one thing to have an altar space to them, to invite them in, but are you going to want them having access all the time? Are you going to want to have a deity that can, interrupt halfway through coitus and kind of be like, by the way, I need you to go and do something for me now? Because that's following more of a kind of priesthood behavior where you're devoting your entire life to something. That is very different to a teaching arrangement that should be arranged with a patron. So,
but there we go. I suppose we're out of time for this little snippet. So basically, don't confuse a direction of a sign in an omen as an invitation to potentially say, there's a god or goddess about, with, oh yes, I really want to work with you and you are to be my student. If you want to meet people that actually do genuinely work with gods, goddesses, magical practitioners of many different kinds, you should get yourself in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. And there we go.